Again, keeping in mind the term expression. These are expressions, not equations, right? It is not something you're solving at this point. When we do quadratics in the next lesson, next unit, you will be solving the quadratic. But this is just giving us an expression, and you are asked to simplify it. We're going to be looking at the number of terms still, factors. We're going to talk about the coefficients when we look at that. Again, we're going to be looking at rewriting it. So, as you are looking at these, if we are looking at this one, it says this is an x plus 3 array, and we want to multiply it so that it would give us 3x squared plus 21x plus 36. So I want you to think of that box method that we were doing before. What we know is that this is kind of like our x plus 3, right? And we're trying to figure out, in order to add these together, right, this first one has to be 3x squared. So what do I have to take times x? I have to take it times 3x, right? Would that give us, I'd have 3x squared, right? Now, if I take 3x times 3, I'm already up to 9x. But I wanted 21x. What do I have to add to 9x? I need to add 12, right? Okay, so can I have, if this is 12x, what has to be out here? What has to be out in front? I already have the x up here, right? So this has to be 12. Okay? Does that make sense? So that gives me my middle term. And what did we want our last term to be? Does it work out? 36. So what is my other factor? 3x plus 12. So this is one way that you could look at doing this, okay? Sometimes this works for some people to always draw that box, but a lot of times I'm not going to give you one of them. You're not going to have one of them. You're just going to have this problem. So, as we are looking, it says the first term up to this point has had a coefficient of 1. So now in our first term is going to have a coefficient other than 1. That last one had 3, right? 3x squared. So factoring becomes more difficult. You need to split the middle term into 2 terms, making it a 4-term polynomial. Okay? 4-term polynomial, not a trinomial anymore. We're going to make it a polynomial. It's going to have 4 terms. Then you're going to factor by grouping. Okay? So, just know the first time through this, it's a little, some of you might struggle. So we'll practice it. Then on Monday, we'll practice it some more. Okay? We'll have a worksheet on the same set. So it says, consider this trinomial, 6x squared plus 23x plus 7. We want to think of 23x as being 2x plus 21. And I'm going to talk about why they came up with those numbers in a few minutes. Okay? So that if we rewrite it as 6x plus 2x and then 21x plus 7, in the first part, do you see how they factored the greatest common factor? The greatest common factor of 6x squared and 2x is 2x. And we were left with this 3x plus 1. Now what's nice about this is usually whatever this factor is, this 3x plus 1, that's the same factor you want back here. And that these 2 factors are almost always going to look exactly the same. And the greatest common factor here was 7. So if now I am pulling and I'm looking and I say, if 3x plus 1 is common to both, I'm going to put that down. And what am I left with? If I pull that out, I have a 2x and I have the plus 7. Okay? So it says, how do you know to rewrite 23 as 2x and 21x? Notice that by multiplying 2 and 21 gives us 42. 42 is the product of the x squared coefficient of 6 and the constant term 7. This 6 and this 7, when I multiply it, give us 42. Once I have that that's 42, I'm going to be trying to look at factors of 42 that will add to 23. Do you agree that 2 times 21, if we are looking at that, is going to give us 42? Right? So this example suggests factoring, and our standard form of it, quadratic, is ax squared plus bx plus c. And we are going to be looking at the a and c factors that have to sum, which means add, right, to the b, the middle. Okay? It's x squared plus 13x plus 5. We are going to start by looking at what are our a and our c. Our a is 6, our c is 5. So we want to look at what is a times c. I'm going to write that kind of to the side of my problem. 6 times 5 is 30. I'm then going to split 13, but I want to look at factors of 30. They went with 3 and 10 instead of 6 and 5. Why 3 and 10? Because 3 and 10 add to 13. 6 and 5 adds to 11. I don't want 11. I want 13 as my middle term. So I go with 3x and 10x. And I just want you to notice that if you would not have written the 3x first and the 10x, that if you would have done this problem, and if you would have put 6x squared plus 10x plus 3x plus 5, it would still give you the same answer. It will still give you that exact answer. So Gavin, if we were looking at this one, and you're looking at the way I did it here rather than how they did it, what would be your greatest common factor of these first two? Are you with me? Or okay. So 2, anything else they have in common? X. And if I factored out a 2x, Kylie, what would I be left with?
3x plus 5.
3x plus 5. That makes sense to everyone? Okay. So write this one down because I just want you to see how you could have done it either way. They did 6x squared plus 3x, but some of you will not put them in the same order. Then the person next to you will put 3x plus 10, and the next you will put down 10x plus 3, and I just want you to see how you can get that same answer. So we already noticed that we have this factor 3x plus 5, and that's what this is. So what number would be out in front of the parenthesis if there's, like in front of an x if there's no number there? 1. And this is 3x plus 5. So now I look at this, and what's common to both of these? 3x plus 5. So I'm going to pull that out. If I would factor out 3x plus 5, as I look at that, Ben, and I divided this whole thing by 3x plus 5, what do I have left? Ben. 2x, right? Soren, what do I have left when I divide this whole thing by 3x plus 5? 1. Is this the same answer that they had when they did it this way? And would it matter if you would have written it as 2x plus 1 times 3x plus 5? It's going to give us the same thing, right? So the hardest thing, again, like I said, is those of you that don't have down those multiplication facts, and you have to use your calculator or something, you want to write down those AC factors when you are looking at this, okay? So this one's going to kind of guide you through it. So first thing we want to look at is what are our A and C, our split factors, right? So this is our A, this is our B, this is our C. Someone said, it doesn't help me when you give us this formula, ax squared plus b. This isn't a formula. This is like just the general form of a quadratic, okay? So the pair factors, we are going to look at A times C, which means I'm looking at 10 times negative 14, negative 140. Now, sometimes I find that I might not, sometimes it's easy to see the factors that are going to give us our sum, which our sum is supposed to be 31. So when you look at 140, anyone pick it out right away? So here's what I have often suggested for students to do. Factor 10, like prime factors, right? 5, 2, and negative 14. One's going to have to be negative in there. Does it matter what? No. And 2 and 7, right? So is there a pattern or a way? It's because 10 plus 14, that gives me negative 4. I want positive 31. So let's try some numbers, right? So we go with, let's go with, instead of 14, we're going to go with 7 times 5, right? 7 times 5 is 35, and 4. Which one has to be negative? The 4, and the 35 has to be positive. So sometimes by writing down those factors, I don't have to keep trying to divide by a bunch of numbers. So when we look at the problem, now we want to rewrite it splitting the middle term. How do we want to split the middle term? 35 and negative 4. So we're going to write it as 10x squared plus 35x minus 4x minus 14. We now are going to factor in each one our greatest common factor. In the first one, as I look at it, Taylor, what's my greatest common factor? 5. Anything else? X. Mallory, once we factor out 5x, I'm left with
2x.
Yep.
Plus 7.
My hint to you is this 2x plus 7, that's kind of what you want this factor to be back here. So knowing that, Jack, should I factor out 2 or negative 2? I want to factor out negative 2. Is that making sense to everyone that we want to factor out a negative 2? So negative 2 times what gives us negative 4x? 2x, right? If I multiply that, I get negative 4x. And then negative 2 to get negative 14 would be plus 7. All right, Dylan, you ready to start me on the next step? So what do they have in common? What do these two things have in common? We're going to put that out in front. 2x plus 7. When I put that out in front, I am then going to be left with, Abby Lynn, 5x minus 2. I don't think I did it right. How can I check? 2x times 5x. Does that give us 10x squared?
Mm-hmm.
The first. Check my middle term. 35x minus 4x gives me my middle term of 31. And if I take the last one in each parenthesis, that's kind of that FOIL way of multiplying. If I take 7 times negative 2, I get negative 14. So you can check these every single time. You can make sure that when you do the problem, you can go back and you have to get this answer if you multiply it out. Does that make sense? Okay, so let's go to another one. Check to see how you're doing on this. We got 2 more that we're going to do. Here it says you've got an area of a rectangle of this. What are the possible dimensions? So again, in a rectangle, length times width, right? So if this is the area is equal to length times width. So we want to start with looking at what are our pair factors. We're going to think of A times C, which in our case, A, Abby, would be what? Abby Medler. What would our A be in this one?
8.
Just the 8. And then what would our C be? 15. So I might take 8 times 15 and I get 120. It has to sum, Elena, to what number?
22.
To 22, my middle term. So, anyone see factors right away?
12
That,
times 10.
which one?
12 times 10.
12 times 10, right? Kind of an easier one than the last one, right? So you maybe didn't need to do prime factors because 12 times 10 is going to give us 120, right? And 12 plus 10 is going to give us 22, which is that middle term. Does that make sense how you're checking it? Sometimes those prime factors might help you. So we're going to rewrite. If I'm starting to rewrite, all right, Lainey, you ready to give it a shot? 8x squared, 12x, and plus what else? So you did this one, so now I also have to have
10.
the 10. And then we're gonna have plus 15. All right. Caden, you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Greatest common factor, right? We got our 4 terms, greatest common factor. 4x, leaving us with what?
2x plus 3.
Okay. Maria, we're factoring in that second one. Common factor. 5, leaving us with?
4
Yes. And usually this, you want to come out the same, okay? So get it to come out the same. So one of those two, where you want to put in your first parenthesis. So what did these have in common that we want to factor? Because our final answer for this factor has to be one parenthesis, a binomial times another binomial. So what are these two, what does this big binomial right here have in common? They both have what in them? That. Josie, you want to have fun? They both have 2x plus 3. Does that make sense, Owen? Both 2x plus. So they both have that. So if I pull that out, then Owen, what am I going to be left with in the second parenthesis? What do I have on the front here? Start with this one. In the front.
4x
So we have to have 4x
plus 5.
plus 5. And again, it would not matter if you would have put the 4x plus 5 first and the 2x plus 3. And if I check it again, oh, the first one, yep, it works. That's 8x squared. And the last 3 times 5 gives me 15. And I have 12 and I have 10 and that adds to 22. Okay? So you could always do that check, right? It's like a happy face, right? You see the smiles down here, you gotta get everything to work, okay, however you want to look. Okay? So if we are looking at it, those are our 2 possible dimensions if we are looking at it. We got one last one before we start. So Whitney, start us off. What if we look at this first? Little different. It says factor your greatest common factor to make it simpler. I look at that whole problem and there is a number that divides into all of them. So what do we want to divide out first? 4. So some of the last problems in your homework, you're going to notice there is a greatest common factor. If we factor a 4 out, Whitney, then I'm going to be left with 2x squared minus 9x minus 5. Still not a nice one like yesterday where you can just go right away in and factor, because your lead coefficient, anytime this lead coefficient of your x squared is not a 1, you have to use kind of the AC split. So, Micah, what are we looking at for our 2 numbers that we're going to have? We have to take 2 times 5, 2 times the negative 5, so we have to have it getting us negative 10. And now it has to sum, Jacob, to what number? What was our middle? It has to sum to negative 9, okay? So we are thinking of, has to multiply, they did 2 and negative 5, so, anybody thinking? Other things besides 2 and 5 will give us negative 10. Negative 1 and 10. Do we want negative 1 and positive 10, or do you want positive 1 and negative 10? Yeah, positive 1, negative 10. Is that making sense to everyone? Good. So Brecken, we know that these are our 2 factors. We want to rewrite it and split it. You have to keep this 4 out front, and you have to keep that whole parenthesis. So now that parenthesis, instead of being this trinomial, we're going to write it as a polynomial. So you ready? Okay. Tell me what to write. Start with 2x squared, right? Okay. Which one of these do you want to put first? Because it doesn't really matter, you can choose. You want what? Minus 1.
Minus 1.
Do you want minus 10 or do you want a positive 1? Right? To add to negative 9, we said it has to be a positive 1 and negative 10. So you want to put the negative 10, what? X plus 1x minus what? Minus the 5. I do want to show you, I just want to show you that if you guys would have done, if you would do this one, and if you did it this way, and you did 4, and you did 2x squared, and you did plus 1x minus 10x minus 5. I just want to show you that both ways work, okay? So it doesn't matter which one you end up putting first, okay? So if we are looking at this, we are now going to do our greatest common factor in each one, right? We're going to do our greatest common factor in each one. We're going to do the greatest common factor in this one too, okay? So, Cassandra, we're going to do it in this one over here. So I have the 4 out front, and then what is my greatest common factor? So 2 and anything else. 2 and x. Leaving us with x minus 5. Okay, so maybe I'm looking at that second one, I got that x minus 5. 1. And I always have to go, why do I have to write the 1? Because when you factor this one step further, notice I put a bracket instead of parentheses. It doesn't matter if you keep that as a parenthesis or bracket, but you have to keep that 4 as part of the problem. Because at the end, when you have these 2 parentheses here in the 4, if your answer is only x minus 5 times 2x plus 1, if you only leave that, that would give us only this answer. And the original problem has to have an 8x squared minus 36x minus 20. So if I check, does this give me my middle term here of negative 9x? Yes. But after I would multiply this out, I have to take everything times 4 to get that. Does that make sense? Okay. So we are going to finish this one over here, just doing it the same way so that you can see. Okay. So Caleb, if we are looking at it, what's your greatest common factor in this first pink one? We're looking at 1x. Just 1x, right? And you'd be left with if I factor out a 2x, what am I left? Or if I factor out just an x, what am I left with? 2. I still have an x with this one? Okay, so 2x plus 1 plus 1. Okay, Sanjay, I'm factoring that last part, the negative 10x minus 5. Negative 5. The reason I want negative 5 is I want it to be 2x plus 1, right? This is kind of my big, and this is not till the later problems that you're doing, okay? But so that's how we keep the 4, and this is now the same answer, right? We can factor out 2x plus 1 in both times x minus 5. And at this point, if you just have 4 times this, or if you have 4 times this parenthesis, I'll take it either way. Because you could take 4 times just one of these parentheses, and it would be work out for your answers if you do that, okay? So this is a little harder